Welcome to the Why Not podcast with me, Chrissy Hawkins. In a world where everybody always asks why, I'm here to ask, why not? I'll be breaking down the mindsets of guests as well as my own in a bid to find out what makes people say, why not? Okay guys, so today's episode with MJ Nutrition, Mary Jo Maguire, is all about female health. So Mary Jo is a nutritionist and she is also the creator of the Female Health podcast. So today we talk about a lot of female hormone health, things you may not know about, like PCOS, hypothalmic around amenoria, very hard to say. And we also talk a little about like things you mightn't realize are affecting these, food, stress, little things that you can do that can help, which doesn't involve medication. So yeah, there's a lot of information in this episode. I find it really interesting and I really hope you guys enjoy it too. So pen and paper for this episode, I really do. I say this at the end and I think you should. It's something you can learn so much from. There's some misconceptions as well that you'll learn about too. But anyway, as ever, I would like you guys to sit back and relax as you listen, or walk and listen, whatever way you like to do it, but enjoy the episode either way. Okay guys, so welcome back to the podcast. Today I have Mary Jo Maguire from MJ Nutrition on for a lovely interview. She specialises in female health and hormones and also has a podcast called the Female Health Podcast. So without further ado, welcome to the podcast, Mary Jo. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for inviting me on. I'm really happy to be here, to be talking to you. It's my first podcast with someone, like being a guest on someone's podcast. So I'm excited to be on the other end of the mic.
Yeah, I'd say it's a big change to what you're normally used to doing.
Yeah, it's nice. It's less pressure. I'm not like getting ready for like, oh, I'm going to record now. Let's go.
Okay, yeah, you just have to answer the questions.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Okay, so Mary Jo Maguire is my name. As you said, I am a nutritionist. My business is MJ Nutrition, which I started now over a year and a bit. It's really been kind of going since like the start of lockdown, though. I think that's when things kind of took off for me. So I have a degree in nutrition with UCD, and then I have a master's in personalised nutrition with Middlesex University in the UK. And I'm also have a diploma in coaching, NLP coaching, which is neuro-linguistic programming, which is just basically all about kind of how your language influences behaviors and things like that. So as you said, I focus a lot on female health and hormones. So I have PCOS myself. I also had a thyroid condition called Graves' disease, which was quite a debilitating illness for like a good year and a half of my life. So I had to put my master's on hold and quit my job for that period of time, just because I was quite sick with it. And I suppose while I always had an interest in nutrition and health and that, it really kind of brought me down this path of working with female health and hormones and the impact of stress on your health as well, and that kind of thing. So that's why I'm kind of now specializing in that, probably from my own personal experiences, really. So yeah, that's what I'm doing now. I work mainly with people online, as everyone is.
True.
Yeah, and that's it. And yeah, I set up my own podcast there last October, the Female Health Podcast, just talking about all things hormones and things like that. Yeah.
I've started listening to that, and the amount I've learned already in just like a few days of listening to that podcast is like, it's unreal. What led you to start that podcast?
I suppose like to have my business anyway. That's like one reason. I think it would be complementary to my business, and it's another string to my bow, maybe, I suppose, to add to it. But also I feel like there was a lack of information out there on like hormones, your periods, things like PCOS, like knowledge around the pill. Like there is some people out there talking about it, like AOK Nutrition, like she is amazing for that kind of thing. But I suppose in terms of a platform, like the podcast, there's not many podcasts I found out there talking about it, especially Irish ones. So and I just wanted somewhere to kind of talk about my own personal experiences and bring it also from a point of view of a nutritionist. And so I can help more women with that. So I wanted to be able to help women understand their bodies more, understand how the pill works, people with PCOS, what they can do about that, take control of their health with regards to that. And it's not just about hormones. I do talk about relationships. I talk about like how relationships impact your stress and how that impacts then your health as a result. So, and your mindset. And I talk about body image and relationship with food, all that kind of stuff. And even if I haven't talked about it yet, it will be talked about. It's that kind of thing. It's all about female health in general, so not just specifically hormones. But yeah, that's kind of the main reason I wanted to do it, just to have a platform other than say my Instagram that talks about it. And like I'd like to talk more sometimes in writing, so I find I'm better at like communicating this way. So I think the podcast was good for that.
That's true, yeah. I'm the same. I quite enjoy the talking element. You can get more across sometimes.
I think so, yeah.
I actually I had a AOK Nutrition on the podcast. She was for a long time the only person that I heard a lot about hormone health from. It just was something that it didn't seem like it's talked about. Do you think that's starting to change now a little bit?
100%, yeah. Like I think there's a lot more. I think like it's nearly cool now to be talking about periods and stuff now. Like if you're not, it's kind of like, what do you do? We need to embrace this stuff. Yeah, I think it's a lot more acceptable now to talk about the female health side of you and your hormones and how they impact your like performance, your exercise, your mood, your appetite, all of these kind of things. And by getting in tune with your cycle, it can make a massive impact on your overall quality of life, really. So yeah, it's like knowledge is power. So I think it's really cool to be able to know this about your body, but there's a lot more people talking about it now. From a scientific perspective as well. It's not like a woohoo thing or anything like that. Like there's a lot of research finally being put into female health and their hormones, because for so long most studies were done on men. And it's just not like reflective, like, I don't mean like, like studies would be done, but like trying to compare men and women, it isn't the same. Like we have a completely different hormonal cycle. Like there's no comparison there. So even making comments on like men and female appetites and energy and exercise performance, it's just not comparative based on our hormones on the cycle that we have. So yeah, like I do think it's been the conversation is definitely opening up now, which is brilliant.
Yeah, I think we have to remember, isn't it, we're not just smaller men, we're completely different.
Completely different, yeah. Like we just have completely different hormones and they fluctuate so much more than men, and it does completely affect our mood and our energy and our appetite. And like the whole thing about women being more emotional and having cravings and things like that, like this shouldn't be labeled as a negative thing. It is just like it happens because of the shifts in our hormones due to our cycle. So if both men and women were more aware of this, it wouldn't be such a taboo thing to say, oh my god, are you on your period, like as if it's a bad thing, it's normal. And I think that's what we need to accept, really. And like the more that we talk about it, the better that would be for everyone.
Yeah, that was really a thing, wasn't it? Like if you're in any way ratty, they're just like, oh, you on your period.
Yeah, and it's such a negative thing, but like, yeah, like there is reasons for that, like, and it's not such a like, yeah, there's such a negative connotation associated with it and your period. But like the way I like to look at it is like we should be so thankful to get a period every month. I suppose from someone who has PCOS, like what PCOS is, it's called polycystic ovary syndrome, and it's when you have like irregular cycles, and you don't ovulate, and you have other symptoms like you have elevated androgens, which causes symptoms. But you'd always kind of know someone who has PCOS because they're just delighted when they get their period. They're like, yes, I got my period, because it's such a, you just never know when it's going to come, and it's just it's really irregular basically. But to have a regular cycle is the fifth vital sign of health, your period. So like if you're getting that every month, it's a sign that your body is working really, really well. If you look at it that way rather than something to be dreading, then you know, it's a more positive experience, I suppose, overall. Like, it's a sign your body's functioning well and that you're ovulating, and ovulating is the most important thing to happen in a woman's cycle, because they're making the hormones estrogen and progesterone, and that's the only way you can make progesterone is through ovulation. So anyway, yeah, like, I just think embracing the period rather than looking at it in a negative way. And I understand women who get really, really, really bad periods. Like, they'd be like, okay, like, why would you want to embrace that? And I totally get that. The first thing to say there is that, like, really, really bad painful periods are not normal. They're common, but they're not normal. We shouldn't be getting that. That's a sign that there's something going on, like a hormonal imbalance. Like, maybe you've got too much estrogen or too little progesterone, for example. So again, that's something that people aren't aware of. They think we have to go through these awful, painstaking periods every month and like be crippled to the bed, not able to work. Like, if it's that debilitating, there's something not right. Like, so yeah, like, that's just to, if someone's wondering, how would I embrace this, why would I want to, it's kind of like, yes, okay, I totally get that. It's embracing what a healthy period should look like, which is like maybe a day of mild cramping, but nothing too more than that. That doesn't you will feel more fatigued and your appetite will be a little bit more elevated, but that's okay, that's normal. But if it's completely debilitating, then there's something going on.
Yeah, it's mad actually. I never realized that until, as well, like even listening to your podcast. Like, and now I'm on the pill now, so it doesn't matter. But I wouldn't have had it that bad before.
Yeah.
But the fact that, like, you kind of do assume like, oh, that's just the way it is, but it
Yeah.
shouldn't be. And
Yeah.
I think it's really like great that you're out there and explaining that to people, because if they are feeling that way, they can do something about it. You're not stuck with this for your whole life.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's it. Like, there's a lot that you can do with that. And like, there's so many lifestyle and dietary and new supplements as well that you can look at to help you with that. And before you even look at supplements, though, looking at your lifestyle, like the amount of like the impact that stress has on your cycle it just can't be ignored. It's huge. Like, stress steals your ability to make progesterone. I keep bringing up progesterone, but progesterone is like nature's Valium. It's like your anti-anxiety, soothing, pro-chill hormone. It's so lovely. And if you're ever feeling anxious, you didn't make enough progesterone, or you're making too little of it. So that's why I'm always talking about that. But like, stress steals that. And so that's when you can feel like really kind of have maybe heavier periods, or just feel really low in mood, depressed, irritable. And that would be a sign of that. So really, like, I'd always say, if anyone has period issues, looking at their stress in their life, are they sleeping well enough? Are they eating enough? Are they not doing over exercising as well? Like, those can be physical stressors. Then obviously there's psychological stressors too. But like, I suppose a lot of psychological stressors we may not be able to remove from our lives, but we can support our body in a physical sense, so we can get more sleep, we can eat well, we can nourish it well, and we can move it in a nice way that supports us, not kind of killing the body by like trying to like go over the top with exercise, but doing like a nice moderate exercise to support the body. Like, that would be really important stuff I'd say to people if they are dealing with a lot of stress in their lives, to make sure they're really supporting it on a physical level to be able to cope with the psychological level.
We're great at coping with stress at the moment, are we?
Not really. And there's so much of it out there. And I think it is like being taught, like, it's probably like, oh, don't get too stressed. And it's kind of thrown out there like oh, mind your stress levels. But like, I think a lot of people associate stress with like psychological only. There's a lot of physical stressors in our lives as well. Like, I work with a lot of clients, and like I say, are you stressed? I'm like, no. And then you could get deeper into things and you figure out, okay, there is a lot of stress there. Like, you're getting 5 hours of sleep a night, you're drinking 3 or 4 cups of coffee a day, you're not getting any daylight exposure. That's still like stress on your body to some extent. Like, so having a look at those kind of lifestyle factors as well to help improve your body's ability to cope with stress. I do think, though, like, the psychological stresses are quite hard to ignore right now, but like, I suppose it's like looking at what you can control. Like, there's so little we can't control right now, which is the crap thing, especially if you are an anxious person. But I suppose focusing on the controllables is the for me, as an anxious person, the only thing that kind of gets you through, isn't it? Like, it's just it kind of helps you manage the stress a little bit better, I feel.
Yeah, I think I'm very similar like that. I'd be like, you're kind of very go 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 type A, and then it's like you have to sit still. But by planning what I could do it's made things a lot easier. It's like I can plan my day. What can I
Yeah.
do? And don't focus on the other stuff
Yeah.
because it just goes way worse.
Yeah, 100%. I think I've nearly gone to the other side now. I'm like I'm too accepting of this situation we're in. Like I'm too accepting. We're in lockdown like forever. Okay, whatever. Like I'm
I've
nearly
gotten
like
a little
when
bit
we
too
get to go
comfortable.
back out again, I'd be like, oh God, no, real world. It'll just be too scary. But no, again, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But for now, like I'm just focusing on what I can control in my day-to-day life.
Yeah, exactly. Do you think actually that do you get a lot of clients who are surprised when you say that it's not normal to not have like a regular cycle? Like they're kind of like I didn't get my period this month. Great, I don't have to deal with that this month more so, as opposed to like that's not actually a good thing.
Yeah, 100%. Like the few things like I notice with clients, firstly, they're really surprised that the pill is not like the real period that they would
Yeah.
get like if they weren't on the pill. And yeah, secondly, they're like you'd often find that they don't know when their last period was, and they don't know what like a normal period looks like. They're just surprised about like the importance of a regular cycle. And like it's just it's because of like I don't know where it really comes from, but it even goes back to if you think about like when you were in school and we were in like primary school and you had the talk and it was like boys girls sat opposite and like you know you were separated, and just the whole thing is very much like tabooed and stigmatized, like that there's something about the period like not to be talked about, to be shamed about. And I feel because of that at a young age we never really talk about with our even our friend groups what's normal, what's right, like, and we don't even know what's normal or what's right because nobody talks about it. And unless you're in an industry like what I'm in, like nutrition and health and that, you're kind of put into it because and also I was put into it because I had a condition like
Yeah.
PCOS. But like there's so many years I had PCOS, like up until about 26, I had no idea of the impact of nutrition, diet, and lifestyle. And even though I was doing a degree in nutrition at the time, I still had no idea of the impact of it um on helping to manage that. Um and like there's very little talk about it as well, and the only option was the pill really to help me manage that or treat
Yeah.
it. I put that in inverted commas because it doesn't treat it, it just kind of masks it until I decide to come off it to maybe have a baby, for example. But yeah, like it's just not talked about at all. And like I keep bringing it back to like the main thing about the important thing about the cycle is that you're ovulating, and the reason we need to ovulate is to make those hormones that supports our bone health. Like we lose those protective effects after menopause because we stop, that is a natural thing that we stop making those hormones at that age. But like we need to seize that opportunity now in our younger years to
Yeah.
make those hormones to support our bone health, to prevent the risk of osteoporosis, to support cardiovascular health, like your mental health. The amount of like there's so many receptors in your brain for estrogen and progesterone, as there are in other parts of the body. It's not just your ovaries, and they're in so many parts of the body, and they really are so important for your mental health. Like depression and anxiety are very much linked with like imbalances in your hormones. So like for all of those benefits, your mood, your thyroid, like thyroid is really, really reliant on progesterone to be functioning optimally. So there's so many benefits of those hormones, and that's why we need to. It's not just about the bleed; it's
Yeah.
about the hormones that we make, and the bleed is like the side effect of those hormones. Your bleed is like the uterine lining shedding because you didn't get pregnant. The uterine lining that has built up from the buildup of estrogen, and it's kind of doing a clear out.
Yeah.
And like that's kind of how when you get it, you start to feel refreshed. You're like, oh, relieved. Just like you're starting new again. It's like your body's just doing a detox nearly as such. It's kind of just
Yeah.
getting rid of a lot of stuff. And so it's really something that like we I will want to make normal for people to be aware of. They want to be getting this every month, and it's a fifth vital sign of health. You can use it to your advantage. You can use it to help you with your sports performance when you know where you're at in your cycle. You can use it to help with planning. You know, I'd always say if someone wants to plan an interview or a date or go on a holiday, do it when you're ovulating. That is when you're feeling your sexiest, your estrogen is at its peak. You look your best, you look your best, you feel really confident in yourself. So like when you know these things, it's like it's amazing. You can do so much with your life with it as well. But yeah, no, I am like I am and I am surprised. Like, I'm surprised like that women don't care as much in a way, because I don't think they realize the importance. But then when you explain to them, they're like, oh my God, I didn't realize that. Like, why didn't I know this before? And that's where it's just like, people didn't know this because we're just not really taught about it. We're taught a bit about it in biology, but not everyone does biology, firstly. And
Yeah.
like, you're not really taught about it in that context. You're taught about it like, from a reproductive point of view of like getting pregnant and just a bit of the physiology
It's
and
just
anatomy. But
clinical, really, isn't it?
yeah, very much so. You don't really learn about how the practical implications for your own life, I suppose. And that's more important, really.
Yeah.
So yeah, I am and I am surprised, really.
Could you actually explain a little bit about PCOS? Because I know myself, I had no idea what it was or what it existed. I actually only found out about it because of Ashlyn O'Kelly's page as well. She started talking about it. I was like, what is that? But
Yeah.
I think there's probably a lot of people who are undiagnosed with it as well, aren't they?
Yeah, like they say 1 in 10 women have it, but I would say there is more, because like I work with so many women who have irregular cycles and haven't got a diagnosis and would have typical symptoms. So it's a endocrine and metabolic disorder. Basically, your ovaries, you don't ovulate. So if you don't ovulate, you don't get a period. And then you have raised male hormones like testosterone and DHEAS. And what these elevated androgens do is cause impaired ovulation as well, but they also cause like the symptoms like the acne and excess hair growth. So it's not just like a little bit of hair, it's like proper dark coarse hair, proper acne in your jawline, your chest, maybe your lower back, your upper back. And you can get male pattern balding, so around your hairline. Women can lose weight, lose hair there. It's also associated with weight gain. A lot of women have higher weight gain or difficulty losing weight with it as well. And then it's associated with more diabetes. So a typical it's a syndrome, really. Like, not everyone's going to have every single one of those symptoms. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? So like, I didn't have all of those symptoms. I wasn't really like, I wouldn't have said I was in the weight gain category. Like, you can have what's lean PCOS as well. So like, a lot of people think like, oh, she doesn't look like she's PCOS. They think you need to fit like the overweight category and have the acne and everything, but like, you don't necessarily need to have that. And that's why like, so many women who go into a doctor's who are lean, they're like, are you sure you have this? Or okay, you don't need to worry about it because you're not overweight. She doesn't go on the pill until you want to get pregnant. Like, but there's more to it than that. Like, you're not, when you go on the pill, you're not able to ovulate when you have PCOS, and then they're giving you a pill to stop you ovulation completely. So
Yeah.
it just makes zero sense. What you want to do is get the body ovulating, so it can start to make its own hormones and get all the benefits of that and start regulating that. And so like, there's a few different types of PCOS, and that's where like there's the most common type is insulin resistant PCOS, but basically your cells become insensitive to insulin. So insulin is like a hormone that regulates your blood sugar. So whenever you eat something, the insulin comes in and it brings the sugar into the cells. What happens with PCOS, for whatever reason, it could be a genetic reason, it could be gut health issues, it could be depletion in magnesium, it could be high stress. There's a lot of different reasons. It's multifactorial reasons. Your cells start to become, they're basically like, your insulin is like the key trying to get in to and open the door to get into the cells, but the cells are like, no, you're not coming in, no chance. It's just not budging, and it's like taking a lot of insulin to try and get the sugar into the cell. So what's happening is your pancreas is like being like, there's still so much sugar in my blood, like what's going on? So it'll release more insulin, and then the insulin is, you're getting high levels of insulin, and eventually what will happen is either the cells will eventually open and you get a flood of sugar into the cells, and you'll just get a drop in blood sugars because they've been really, really high, and then suddenly they're going in really, really quickly, and then that's when like the cravings and things come in. And the insulin's like a fat storage hormone, so the high levels of insulin will bring some of the sugar to be stored as fat around your liver and your midline, and then that's when you still feel really hungry because the sugar didn't even get used up it didn't
Okay,
get into the cells to be used as energy. So it's like you ate something, it wasn't even utilized for fuel, because that's the whole purpose. Like the sugar is being brought into the cells to be used as fuel for energy so your body can function, but it's
Yeah.
actually been stored, and it's kind of like that's not a well functioning metabolism. So that's the insulin resistance. And what happens with that is the high levels of insulin then cause impaired ovulation, causing women with PCOS have that, and that gives the typical symptoms like weight gain, cravings, acne, all those kind of things. Then there's post-pill PCOS, so that's pretty self-explanatory. If you come off the pill,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of women might struggle to get a period for up to 6 months, but like that's kind of, it's normal enough not to get a period for 3 to 6 months after coming off the pill. It takes your body a bit of time to adjust. If
Yeah.
it's a bit longer than that, it might be that like your body is still not like, it hasn't adapted, basically, because like your hypothalamus usually tells your ovaries to ovulate and to release an egg, but when you're on the pill it's kind of shut down. You don't have to, and so maybe it takes a bit more time to catch up. With that type, I'd always say be patient, and just to there is some things that you can do and some supplements you can take, but I would say be patient mostly with that. Then there's like inflammatory PCOS that can happen with you know, you might see it with someone who has IBS or psoriasis, eczema, joint pain, a lot of heavy fatigue, and just really bad migraines. And so they're kind of inflammatory issues that might go alongside the PCOS. So you'd be really looking at like reducing the inflammation in that type. And then there's stressed or adrenal PCOS. So your adrenals are secreting high levels of cortisol, which impairs ovulation, and also another testosterone called DHEAS, which increases the male androgens and causes those other symptoms. So there's a few different types, and I suppose getting to the root, the type that you have is really important, because then you can actually target it more effectively, and really like really manage it much better. So like with insulin resistance, it's massively a diet and a lifestyle approach. Like it's how you eat, when you eat, what you eat, it's what exercise you're doing, it's what supplements you're taking. It's hugely influential when you do it the right way. But like trying to follow all these different things on Instagram, like go dairy free, go gluten free, do seed cycling, all these kind of things, like that's just going to confuse the hell out of you. And like they may have their place, but like they'd be the last port of call. Like, you know, there's so much you can do before doing that with PCOS. So it's a complicated condition. Like it's quite like, it's a lot, like, and it takes a good while. Like for me, like it took over a year and a half to fully get like a more regular cycle for myself. Like my cycles would have been 100 days long sometimes. Like I could go like 3, 4, 5 months without a period. Like that's how long they were. And now I'm down to like a monthly cycle, which is amazing for me. Like, but that took like over a year and a half to get, like, and like I see that with clients, it takes time. It's not something like they'll sign up for like a 12-week plan with me and they'll get it in 3 months time. No, it's not like that, but it's building the foundations to get there and to support them, their body and their metabolism, to be able to respond better, and to get things going for them, really.
Do you find there's a bit of trial and error with that as well, see what works for different people as well?
Yeah, there can be. I suppose I'd always say try and get blood tests done, because with what you're doing, because there's so many different conditions. Like it could be like hypothalmic amenoria as well, which is the loss of your period as well. Like, so if you get bloods, you're able to just differentiate maybe what's going on, and you're not doing as much trial and error. But in most cases, it's the insulin resistant type PCOS. It is the most common. And like, even if it isn't, a lot of the things that you're doing for that will help the other ones anyway. It's just that there might be some specific supplements maybe for each type that will help you a little bit more. But yeah, like that's kind of PCOS in a long-winded nutshell.
No, it's good, because even there, like I didn't know there were so many versions of it. So you could like myself, say for instance, now I don't think I have it, but it could be a person listening to this who's like, oh well, maybe no, I don't have those symptoms. Oh wait, I could have it with this. Like just with amenorrhea as well, is that mostly, would you find that mostly with very lean people? Does that tend to happen, or is it possible that if you've got a higher body fat percentage it'll come into you as well?
Yeah, you can have it with higher body weight as well. It is like a perception that like it's with lean athletic people, and it's very common in those people, but in those women, but you can have it if you're overweight as well, or have a higher body fat as well. You may not be eating enough nutrients to support the body, and you may have high levels of stress, and Yeah, that because it's a lot to do with the stress levels that are put on your body. It's essentially when your hypothalamus in your brain has decided to shut down basically and not reproduce because it perceives the body to be in a state of stress, and it's like, okay, this girl cannot have a baby right now because she's way too stressed, so it won't reproduce. So it won't release an egg basically for you. So you basically have to try to signal to your hypothalamus that you're safe and you're nourished and you're in a good place. So that can take time. It could take like up to a year or more. Like it's a big recovery time, depending on where you're at. Like, but if you're doing a lot of exercise and you're in low calorie diets, that's definitely something that you can change. But like they're the easy things to change. It's the mindset that's hard. Like if you're someone who has been in the mindset of, dieting all of your life and looking a certain way and being lean and doing so much exercise, it's very, very hard to say to someone there, oh, just like cut back your exercise, like stop for like a while and get up to 2,500 calories a day. Like that's like the recommended amount for someone with hypothalmic amenorrhea. But that's quite difficult to do. So it can take a lot of, I suppose, they may need more support other than like a nutritionist. They may need like the support of a therapist or a counsellor as well to help them on that journey. It just depends on where they're at. But yeah, it can occur with your question there in people who are overweight as well. They may be malnourished basically. They could be eating a lot of foods that are not actually nutrient dense and giving the body the nutrients that it in the body too. There's a lot of inflammation going on, there's a stress there too, so it does depend, and there could be a genetic makeup there too perhaps leading to that, who knows. And there's a lot of there's a lot unknown about it too, but yeah, it can occur, to answer your question there.
Yeah, actually it's good way you mentioned that, like, if they have a higher body fat, they could be eating like low nutrient dense food. It's just kind of high calorie food, isn't it?
Yes,
And
yeah.
I didn't even think about that, because I know normally you think of it probably with lean people because they don't have the body fat percentage for your body to be like, no, you can't support you, let alone a baby right now.
Yeah, absolutely. But like there's so many nutrients you need, like your zinc, choline, and all your B vitamins and things like that. And if your diet's high in like processed foods or high in just like anti-nutrients even and things like that, it just could be yeah, you might be depleted in a lot of those nutrients that are needed for like managing stress levels and managing a healthy nervous system and metabolism and cellular function and all of that. So yeah, like it's definitely possible for sure.
Yeah. How do they react when you talk about it and stuff like that, to bringing up the calories to like 2,500? Because I think there's a lot of women in particular with the diet culture that's out there. It's a lot of fear in eating food, really, isn't there?
There really is, and I'm seeing it so much, and like it's really hard because you don't know what's going on in their mind, and it's a psychological thing, it's an emotional thing. Like there's only so much as a nutritionist that I can do, and like I have like coaching skills to try and support them with that. But I always try to say, like, you're stealing from your future now. You're like the stress you're putting on your body now is stealing from your future. Even if they don't want to, like, they may or may not know if they want to have children or not, like, but they're stealing from that opportunity, or that giving them that option if they don't focus on this and make it a priority now. So like if there's someone who's doing like training for a marathon and like only eating say 1,500-1,600 calories and doing like 3 to 4 or 5 runs a week of 10K, I always saying what you're doing now is stealing from your future health basically, and the opportunity for your health in the future. And I found that saying that to a few of them has definitely helped them and given them a reality check. And they're just like, okay, God, when you say it like that, I'm just like, what am I doing? Like, why do I care about this so much when it could be really impacting my and it's not that long away. Like it could be future health in 3-4 years time. Like it's not that long away at all. So yeah, like I suppose with that, like it's like trying to figure out like what is their fear about weight gain. Like what is their fear? What does it mean for them if they gain weight? Like does it mean that they're less of a person? What is their fear about being a bigger size than they are now? And that can be a challenge for them to think about, because there could be many different reasons. Like a lot of people, they may feel they only deserve love if they're a certain So there's a lot of complicated issues behind that question, and it will be completely different for everyone. But I suppose it is about asking those tough questions and getting the client to think. And I like to put questions on them, get them to go and think about things and come back, and they're really like, God, I never thought about it that way. I can't believe this is what way I've been thinking for so long. And just bringing that awareness can help so much, because they can start to change their mindset and behaviors as a result of when they are starting to be more aware of what they're doing it for or why they're doing it.
What are the most common misconceptions you see with women and kind of food and stuff like that?
That they need to go low carb or low fat, or they need to be always counting calories and in a calorie deficit always. And they'd be really, I suppose, a lot of things I would see. The carb one is a big one. I think a lot of people have a misconception about carbs being they don't need, like, they need to go low carb to be healthy or at good weight. I think they're like the main ones I definitely see a lot. And also the misconception of the impact of lifestyle on their overall health, like the fact that they're not getting enough sleep, or that they're doing so much in terms of their work and then their exercise, and they're still expecting them to be okay then on 14 or 1500 calories that are not made up maybe of like carbohydrates as well. So yeah, there's a lot of that kind of comes together. I see a lot with women though, that they come with that kind of fear of the carbohydrates, and just that maybe going into maintenance calories can fear them as well. And just not eating enough, to be honest with you. Like, it's a big thing. Like, women, like, I think they expect to have optimal digestion and optimal energy and performance and exercise and the ability to work on empty, nearly on like 14. That's not enough food, 1400 calories. Like, we need energy in form of food to have digestion, to be able to use our food, like all of that. Like, so we can't run on empty. Every cell requires energy to function. And like, we have big demands from our body. Like, again, we have a menstrual cycle to support, we have ovulation to support, we have basically, whether it's our choice or not, we were biologically designed to have babies. So we have to support the body and able to do that, even if it's our choice or not, even if we want to or not. Maybe we don't want to, that's absolutely fine, but it's still, our body functions that way, as in, like, it's designed to have a baby. So we need to eat as if, like, we are supporting all of those functions, your reproductive health, all of your hormones, all of that. So not eating enough is a big thing, and the fear of eating enough, and the fear of eating 3 regular meals per day with protein, fats and carbs in all of them. Like, that's normal. That's like how a woman or a man or whatever should eat. So yeah, I think they're a big misconception. Is just not eating enough. It's like they think they need to be eating like small amounts of calories and maybe 2 meals per day, or definitely having 2 meals with no carbs and things like that. So yeah, they're some of the misconceptions I'd see.
You find, actually, I've noticed this with people who like train in the gym and stuff, and clients, that they don't know why they're doing it.
Yeah, they just kind of like probably come across it somewhere, like God knows where, like, and just think it's oh yeah, I thought that was right. Like, they don't really kind of question it. And like, that's like, the reason I question it is because I've got like the science background, I'm interested in it, and that's fine. Like, there's lots of things I'd see in another industry that I wouldn't question, you know what I mean? I'd just be like, oh, that must be what's to do you know what I mean? So I get that, but that's the problem. There's so much crap out there on, like, say, Instagram and social media and stuff like that about certain diets and things to follow, and then there's the likes of groups like Slimming World and all these kind of groups that, like, then really mess up people's relationship with food as well. And so there's a lot of room for people to just kind of go down the wrong track. Do you know what I mean? There is a lot of room for that. Like, and so you can understand why it is so confusing for people. Like, it is really confusing. There's so much information out there. Like, as a nutritionist with like a master's in science and nutrition, I'm still having to delve deep and like try to figure out what is the right thing to do at times. Like, I'm using it from an evidence-based approach, but like, for someone who doesn't have that, like, which is a lot of people, because they're in different careers, which is absolutely fine, like they're not going to do that work. They're going to just trust what they see from someone on, like, or whatever. And yeah, so that's why they just kind of go down that route, I guess.
Yeah, no, I understand. I agree with you. There is stuff like
Yeah.
there's things I probably take for granted because I don't know what
Yeah.
it's just interesting. I just thought it was interesting, like, to ask them why they think that, and they're just like, but it's bad, and you're like,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, like, is that fact or not? Like, where is this fact coming from? Where did you hear this? Where is it coming from? Like, I suppose questioning them on that, like, what is bad? There's nothing bad or good, like, about this. Like, maybe there's a scale, if anything, but, like, inherently there's nothing really good or bad. Like, it's just, I suppose, the way you approach it and treat it and your relationship with food more so than anything. That's the important thing.
Yeah, there's definitely the relationship with food. Is a big one, I think, especially with women. I don't think lads, well, like, there's definitely something there. I know a few that are a bit like that, but women definitely have more issues with relationship with food, I think, don't they?
I think we just have a lot more, like, food is emotional. I do think so, like, but, like, we can start to become unaware of what we're using food for. Like, there's like, yeah, I do agree. Like, I think I was talking to someone about this recently. We're just like so jealous of lads who can just like eat anything and not think about it that much. Like, and it's like they do that more often than women do, I think. Like, a lot of women associate foods with, like, they have more emotion attached to it, I think. And that's probably come from, like, expectations of what we should look like, diet culture and things like that. Like, but I'm not saying men get that too, for sure. But I do think it's very common in women. But yeah, like, I suppose the relationship with food is it's a tricky one to work on, but it's identifying what they're using food as. Like, is it to cover up, like, an emotion like boredom, sadness, or loneliness? And, like, there's a lot of that going on right now, so identifying that and maybe having a bit more tools to help you deal with that rather than food, because food, it's great, like, it's a comfort and it's okay to use that. And if you've had to rely on food right now to get you through this lockdown and maybe you've gained a few pounds, so be it. Like, it's not a big deal, you know what I mean? But I suppose it's like anything, you don't want to be relying on one thing to get you through, because then you can become overly dependent on it and it's your sole crutch. You want to maybe rely on other things, like, your friends, maybe you're talking to someone, or whether it's journaling or doing something that stress relieves you. Like, because, like, we often eat when we're stressed, but maybe that's not the most proactive thing to do or beneficial or helpful thing to do. Yes, it can give you a bit of a dopamine hit and make you feel good in the moment, but wouldn't it be better maybe to actually relieve your stress and maybe feel better afterwards from something else for longer term, like going for a walk in nature, or doing, like, a yoga flow that makes you feel good if you're into that, or talking to a friend or having a laugh with someone. Like, laughing is amazing for making you feel good. So yeah, I suppose it's just about becoming aware of, like, why you're eating. Is it hunger, or is there something else going on? And maybe if there's something else going on, maybe having some tools in place for yourself there. So I suppose it's about planning before it happens, because in the moment you may not do that. So having a few things that you could think to bring in for yourself, and then bringing the awareness around that as well. I think the awareness is key.
Yeah, that's it. We do a lot of things on autopilot, don't we?
100%. Yeah, you do. Like, things that you've been doing, like, especially in lockdown now, you're just, like, constantly snacking, grazing the whole time, and it's not hunger, it's just, like, boredom, mindlessness. You're just doing it. So, like, having something else to break up that, like, your brain is looking for a dopamine hit in that state, so it's like doing something else, even if it's just, like, jumping jacks, or, like, running up and down the stairs, or going out for a 10-minute, like, jog around the house. Like, something small like that will just kind of, so that can break up that boredom and give you that release that you nearly need from sitting at the desk maybe the whole time, or something like that.
I think it's like, as well, for a lot of time before these, we weren't, like, no, we weren't dealing with a lot of things, but we had enough distractions. Now you don't have the distractions.
Yeah, that's so
You're
true.
forced to
100%.
deal with things that you were.
Yeah, 100%. Like we've had to confront a lot of crap, really, haven't we? Like that we didn't have to do before. We had nights out to cover up things. We had to hang out with people. We had busy work days, driving to and from an office, just constant like social events and places to go. And like, yeah, you had your holiday to make you feel good as well and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Like, but yeah, we've had to deal with a lot of stuff, and like the small things are now becoming like the big things really to help you get through, like the likes of your Netflix and a walk, and maybe like the takeaway at the weekend or cooking a nice meal or something like that. They're the things that are getting you through, as opposed to the big things that would have like the big holidays and things like that before. um but like I think it's nice too that like the smaller things, we're appreciating the smaller things to make us happier, and to realize we can become happy from them, like just the connection with friends and family, and realizing who's there for you and being close to those people. So I suppose there's not all bad in it. Like it's like you
Yeah.
are building up more connections and better connections, really. Like you may have had more people around you before, but maybe you weren't as connected to them. You might have a smaller circle now, but you're closer to them. They're the people you actually want to hang around with, really.
Yeah. It's that, like, it's that thing, like, when you go to the pub and there's a group of people and there's probably at least four of them you don't want to see, but everyone's there. But at least with, like, if you're texting your mate, you can decide who you actually talk to now.
100%. Yeah, you're yeah, I think like what might have come out of it for people is that they have like been able to get away from maybe toxic friendships and things that they didn't want to be part of. I don't know how we got here actually.
I know, yeah, it's just kind of stupid, but I'm interested in now.
But they yeah, they're moving away from that and toxic friendships and relationships and stuff like that, and like realizing what actually brings them happiness and like what they care about now. So they're focusing on people that bring them more joy basically and stuff like that. So yeah, I think there are lots of good things about this lockdown, or these lockdowns, whatever we're in now. But bringing it back to relationship with food, I think that's where we started off on.
Yeah.
Yeah, like yeah, I don't really know how I'm going to bring that back. Sorry, I don't know how we got there.
We just kind of went on tangent. It's okay.
Yeah.
But this is what the fun thing about podcasts is. You can go on these weird little
Yeah.
Here's one. Is there anything you found that helps clients change their mindset about food? Like anything particular you can say, or was it more so just like borrowing from the future? Or
I kind of like to get them to focus rather than the scales and the weight and things like that, and focus on what they appreciate about their body, and focus on what it's good for. And like I always kind of say, what's the point in being like X weight if your digestion is crap? You're constantly bloated, your energy is on the floor, you're not getting sleep, your relationship with food is awful. Like you approach it like you can't have a takeaway without beating yourself up. Like what's the point in that? So I kind of like to get them to focus on all of the bits. So even if they're not losing weight maybe at the start and they can feel really crap about that, say like, well, look at all the good things that are happening for you right now. Like your bloating has completely reduced. You're not like, you're able to digest your food a lot more. Your energy is way better. You're getting up in the morning now with a bit of energy and spark. You're able to like get personal best in the gym you haven't been able to do before. You're getting a regular cycle. Your periods aren't as bad. All of these kind of things, and I think like they're real markers of health, and to focus on those rather than just the weight. And then that shifts the mindset to being like, oh my god, my body's amazing. It's actually so empowering. There's so much I can do with it because of my health. And once you focus on that and realize there's more to it than just a number on the scales, you start to it does help the mindset a lot, and you start to use food as fuel and for nourishment rather than food as like whatever way you may have looked at food before, is maybe just like something you had to count or track constantly, or as a punishment sometimes, or that you couldn't eat some of it. So yeah, like looking at food as fuel and nourishment, and allowing yourself the fun foods when you want them as well. There's nothing wrong with having those two and being able to enjoy that, but that's a really important part of life. If you can't have the foods, like the fun foods, I don't know, like whatever that may be for you, like a pizza or chocolate or a few drinks, like that's not quality of life if you can never have them without having a guilt or something like that. So yeah, I think I try to reframe the process and change the process from thinking about weight loss solely, and focus on what the body can do for you and being appreciative of that. And just, I think energy is such an underrated thing. Maybe it's because I had Graves' disease, where like I just was constantly like having to sleep, like I had no energy at all. I just appreciate that so much now, like when I'm able to get up every morning and go about my day and do a full work day without being completely floored. And so I always try to like focus that on that with clients as well. Like, you have great energy, like that's a massive sign of health, you know. And like I think we've all gone through periods where like our energy's crap or low, like, so thinking back to a time with that, when you feel like that, it's not nice. So like when you feel great, then it's like, okay, I want to stay like this, you know. If I'm eating well and enough, I'll feel like this more often. Like, so yeah, that's kind of how I like to talk to clients and around their mindset. And it does help. It definitely does.
I see, it's a great point about the energy actually. Like, I'm taking a rest week from training this week because I was absolutely knackered most of the time for the last week or two, and I was like, that's a sign, like, and I can't ignore it for much
Yeah.
longer. Like, eating is not an issue for me, but I probably do fall into overtraining a little bit because I've nothing much else to do, so I enjoy it. But I was like, right, Chrissy,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
have to listen to your body here. It's telling you
yeah,
something, you're
100%.
knackered.
Absolutely. Like when your body will give you signs like that it needs rest, like 100%. You know, there's so many signs that you could get, but lack of energy is a huge one, you know, and just being fatigued and sleeping, and just like even like lots of cravings or being hungry more, and you know, not sleeping well. They're all signs of like your body's trying to tell you something, you know. It doesn't go out like a period that you didn't get 1 month is another sign, like your body's trying to tell you like there's something going on. Like, so for sure. And there's nothing serious going on, it's just that you're neglecting certain areas of it. You're just
Yeah.
like not nourishing it well, or you're just being too hard on yourself, and you're constantly in go mode, and your adrenaline is just up the whole time, and you're not giving it a chance to come down and just be in a rest state, in a rest and digest mode.
Yeah, exactly. And just because you're used to it doesn't mean it's normal and you should be doing
Yeah,
it. You have to
100%. You
remember
know,
that.
yeah, it's like just that autopilot thing. We do something so much because it's what we've always done, it's always worked for us, but like it doesn't mean it's normal or right, and it can lead us into a state of ill health if it's not beneficial, like depending what your practices are.
Yeah, which nobody wants to hear, but
Yeah, I know they don't. Like, it is tough, like if you are someone who's on the go all the time. And yeah, like that's the hard part, I find, is changing people's mindset around that. Like, is you know, if they've been someone who's like a type A, for example, or let's say an overachiever, or just someone who wants to do really well, it's really hard for them to like sit back and like actually be with themselves, because they haven't allowed that to happen. Like, or maybe they're uncomfortable with the thoughts that might come up. They're afraid of what might come up because they haven't ever had to deal with them before. And I see that a lot, and it's like they're afraid of like something coming up that they've never dealt with, and what that would mean for them. And like, yeah, it's a big challenge for them, I think, to go down that route. But by doing that, you're actually like opening up a completely other side to you, and opening up like something that you may have suppressed for a long time. And because you're kind of in like conscious mode, like ego mode the whole time, and you're not bringing yourself into your subconscious lower level and actual true self, when you're like constantly on the go. Like, so you have to sit and become aware, and just slow down, basically slow down, and get in tune with your thoughts and your mind, in order to, I suppose, really figure out what you really want and what like you're really thinking and feeling. Because if you're constantly going, it's going to catch up with you at some point, so you're better to deal with it.
that's it. Like, yeah, because you'll either end up sick or injured or something,
Yeah, 100%.
and then you instead of listening to your body, you'll end up worse off and probably longer out than if you just taken the break and adjusted to it.
Exactly.
I've one more question for you. So, what is the best piece of advice that you've ever gotten?
I don't really know if it's advice, but like I never know what to say with this question. Like, I remember when I was really, really young, my dad said to me, there is no such word as can't. And like in my naive little child mind, I really took that so seriously. I was like, oh my God, there's no such word as can't. So I think it's subconsciously ingrained in me now that no matter what happens, like there's a way around it, or you can do something about it.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes me face challenges, or like I'm kind of determined to like do things, because I'm like, oh, it's always possible. Like, if there's a will, there's a way, and you can do it, and just kind of have a belief in yourself, really. And I think I kind of seen that word as can't as an excuse not to push yourself to do something. So with regards like starting a business or like doing the podcast, they were things I was like afraid to do, but I was like, it's not like I can't do them. So it kind of like, they're probably, I think it's subconsciously in my brain that I can do things as a result. And, you know, even with my health, like, you know, I went through quite a roller coaster with that and was told to get my thyroid removed and all of these kind of things, and was put on lots of different medication to help it, which none of which worked. And I decided to try to look after it myself through lifestyle and dietary management, and a bit of supplements and that. And a lot of people were like, oh my God, like, what are you doing? And I kind of was like, no, I really stuck to my guns and my gut, I suppose, and I'm going to work on this. And I did, and like, I'm completely better now and all that. Like, but I suppose, I think it sticks with me in all areas of my life that like, there's a pot, you can do it if you put your mind to it, basically. And like, just if you believe in yourself, as cringe as all this sounds, like, it's just kind of like putting your best foot forward and like going for it, really. So I think that's like, probably, I don't know, it's not really advice, it was just like a random statement he said. Like, I remember so well, it was something to do, I was playing tennis and I was like, I can't do this, and he just said, there's no such word as can't. And I just remember like, oh my God, wow. Deep.
Such a dad response, isn't it?
Isn't it? Like, it's like nothing philosophical or anything big from some fancy like author or anything, but this is my dad's little quote he said to me. But yeah, it stuck with me, I suppose. And that's like, I don't really know if it's advice.
That's it, like, it's worked, hasn't it? So that's,
well, yeah,
no matter where it came from.
Yeah.
That's no, that's brilliant. I really like that. And also what you're saying about, like, you know, not believing you can't do things and stuff like that, believing in yourself, that's like pretty much what most of this podcast is about, so it was perfect as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, there's so much in like just like believing in yourself. It's so, if you believe, you can do anything, really. Like, there's like, really, like, your thoughts become your beliefs and all that. Like, so it's not it, like, it's just so yeah, like, just a visualizer you can do no matter where you are at. Like, you know, like 2 years ago, I never thought I'd be like running my business, having a podcast. You know, I was sick in bed on medication and like not able to do anything. And now I did not think I'd be doing what I'm doing now. Like, so thankfully I can look back and say, yay, but like, it took a bit of time to get there. But like, I always in the back of my mind, I think I was like, I'm going to set my own business up, I'm going to do this, but like, I didn't know the how. I was just like, how am I going to do that? I don't know. But finally I just started getting better gradually and through my own work and stuff like that. And then here I am.
There you go. Like, you figure it out along the way, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the how will come to you, and that's not your job, really. It's just doing it's just believing in yourself and putting your best foot forward, I think.
Yeah, that's so true. It's like perfect way to finish off as well. But just before you go, let everyone know where they can find you.
Yeah, they can find me on Instagram, MJ Nutrition. I don't have a website yet. I'm currently in the process of getting one designed and set up. But MJ Nutrition on Instagram is the best way to find me. And then if you want to listen to my podcast, it's the Female Health Podcast on Spotify and iTunes. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I've got all my stuff there on Instagram, getting in contact with me and stuff like that. Yeah.
Brilliant. So thanks again for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and I learned so much in this. I'm gonna have to like listen over this with a pen and paper, and I think just be like, oh yes, actually stuff I'm learning.
Well, that's good, I suppose. I hope people aren't like, oh God, this is overwhelmed.
Well, I really think you'll take a lot from this podcast. So
good.
Do you want to say thanks again for coming and yeah. and thanks to everyone for who is listening to the podcast now. If you can, do give it a share. Let us know how you found it. And yeah, thanks again. Thank you again for listening to the Why Not podcast. It really means a lot that you are listening in, and I would love if you could please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or subscribe on Spotify. And always, I'd love to hear feedback personally, so if you do want to leave me a message and let me know how you found the podcast, please do.